Hello, and where are we up to? Like 7? Something like that. This week's
Okay.
SomeCast. I'm not counting. Sigh all you want, Luke. I'm your only option.
I'm only sighing because I actually think I have lost count. And that's a bit depressing.
So, this week we have got myself, Cameron, Mark,
Hello.
and Luke.
So,
I wasn't sure if the pause there was me introducing myself.
And we are free from a harmonica. I mean, Raymond sadly can't be here with us.
the big part would be if one of us actually said to him, give us a recording, we'll torment the group.
Why would you say such a thing?
Oh, now you're going to be lying awake at night wondering if it's true.
That you're going to send me recordings of a harmonica?
Raymond joined the server.
Oh god.
Holy crap.
Call and it shall
He's
appear.
muted
Message
anyway.
received.
You're
He's
friggin'
just
kidding.
sent a message, harmonica.
I'm assuming he's listening to us. Anyway. Well, I would argue that the biggest piece of gaming news for us for the last 2 weeks has been a Steam sale, and apart from Team Corgi dominating, I mean, legitimately doing well. I don't know how to put that.
Message
It's just been
received.
ridiculous.
Are corgis usually a dominant species?
I don't know. I wouldn't have said yes, but I don't know.
Small dog syndrome, I guess.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Have you ever been mounted by a corgi?
I've never seen a corgi.
Anyway, Steam sale. What tantalized everybody?
Is it bad that I went through most of the list I mean, I know my wish list was big already, but honestly haven't seen a huge increase in the number. Only reason why I add anything to my wish list was that I'm under the absolute delusion that I'll actually get the 3 top games for free when this event ends.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, the event ended, didn't it?
Yeah,
it was the 9th, wasn't it?
I thought no, the actual event part of it's over. I'm pretty sure.
Well, there you go. My delusion has ended, and I will forever have a delusion of grandeur that never came.
Message received.
I mean, I got
Raymond
excited one
disconnected from
time.
the server.
I saw a little notification of, in my inbox. I was like, oh, did I get a free game? It's like, nope. Luke has sent me an invite to Rocket League.
I apologize for that. I mean, I actually had a few similar things like that too. I mean, I sort of always expected that if you want to get anything, it could probably show up as a gift. So when I saw my thing for the entire week say you have one new item in your inventory, and I kept on clicking on it and like, there's nothing frigging here. And then suddenly I come on today after restarting my Steam, and it's like, oh, guess what? There was nothing really there. And I thought to myself, you
get nothing.
like for a week you torment me, and for a week you piss me off for nothing.
Yeah, I got tricked by the sending an in-game invite to join a party, and then it sends you an actual message through your Steam Messenger, which gives me an unread message.
Oh yeah. So hang on. So did you say you actually had a notification for an invite to a game up in the notifications area?
Yeah,
that
I had
was
an
that in your
unread
chat?
message.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually, I have not had one of those in a little while. I did only restart my Steam for the first time in 3 months yesterday, so
Do you just
That's
leave your
probably why.
computer on perpetually?
Yes. I always have to commit myself that every 2 months I have to restart it, otherwise things start going weird.
I was using Photoshop yesterday, and every time I tried to move something, the Photoshop would lag for 10 seconds, so I'm like, oh, time to restart my computer.
Yeah, I don't know what to attribute that to.
Me neither, but it's working now.
It's Mark's copious amounts of porn.
I mean,
Yep,
I wasn't going
all
to
the
say it,
adware.
but honestly, that was the first thought.
Mostly sent to him by Anton.
Anyway, games people wanted to buy.
Well, I've actually got a whole list sitting in my cart at the moment that I'm mulling over what I do and don't want to actually buy of it. I just sort of went through the store and loaded up everything that had piqued my interest, and now I can look at it all and consider. It was also of interest. It's like, if the total number comes out to something that I'm prepared to pay, I'll just buy the whole list. But I don't think I'm prepared to pay the total number. I don't know. It's over 200.
Oh, actually, it's not so bad. I
It's
suppose it
actually,
depends how many games there are in that bundle of yours.
so what I've lined up is Subnautica, which has had my interest for a while, but I've never actually pulled the trigger to buy it.
I really regret not getting the Epic Games free version of that.
I got the Epic Games free one when it came out.
Ah.
Yeah, I'm the winner in this group.
So what's your login?
I mean, you probably could take it because it's like I can gloat that I have it, but I haven't loaded it up. So, am I really the winner?
I think the real winner here is that Epic convinced you to download and install their...
They convinced me that at the last moment. Shit, I better load up Epic Games for the first time in a week and open this and get this baby before it goes away. And then I'm like, yeah, I have it. I then looked away from it and it disappeared into my library.
I think the real winners are probably the developers and publishers, like getting paid for games people are claiming and never gonna play.
Yep. Lucky sods.
Actually, just on a massive tangent there, I don't know if you guys have followed any of the drama in the past week or past 2 weeks about a bunch of indie devs calling G2A out on Twitter.
About like racial slurs and stuff.
No, about that G2A, for the love of God, needs to stop selling their games because they actually lose money on copies of games sold through G2A. And that G2A's selling it without, in opposition to their request, because these developers have actually asked for G2A to take their games off their system.
But how are they selling it? Do they have the publishers selling it or something?
No, because what happens is a lot of G2A sales are individual keys that somebody has sold to G2A, basically.
Ah.
So what's happened is that there's a whole bunch of stolen keys on sale on G2A, and they don't...
Sorry, G2A.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying GOG.
No, not GOG.
Yeah, G2A, yeah. Never buy it from them.
Yeah, so... Just your comments about money going to developers on Epic. It's like, yeah, well, what about a story about a store that's actually taking money from developers?
Yeah, they're always losing money from third-party shit.
I gotta admit, I like to vet online stores in general, not just gaming stores, before making purchases through them, and G2A's always sat funny. It took a long time for me to even trust things like Fanatical to buy through them.
Yeah. I basically just use anything that, is there any deals, or like the GG deals sort of advertise. And even then, I usually don't do the ones that don't do currency conversion, like the ones that you have to spend US money on to buy a game. I'm just like, yeah, I'll just try and find the cheapest Australian equivalent.
Yeah. I've never gone so far as the ones where it's like, you've got to buy it in like Mexican pesos or something.
Yeah, like, usually they're just, you gotta pay it in pound or pay it in American dollars.
Yeah. I've normally been prepared to do things in US dollars, and on occasion do it in pounds, but
It's just, I
beyond
don't
that?
know what my bank, how they do the currency conversion. So, like, when it's like, oh, this is a squiggly line, $30, or I can go to an actual Australian conversion for $32, might as well just do that one.
Yeah. You gotta go look up exchange rates and then add like an extra 2 or 3% onto it. Because...
Anyway,
Yeah.
we're going off on a tangent.
Anyway, rest of that games list. Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. This is one that I've been umming and ahhing about for a while, and it still tempts me. I don't know if you guys have looked into it at all.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I actually remember bringing it up a while back. It's a Warhammer 40k universe game. It's much more deep focused tactics rather than like overall strategy for a strategy game.
Yep.
Like it's more about combat, a fleet to fleet combat rather than managing your entire empire. Going down the list, X4 Foundations. That's just the fourth X game. Well, actually, it's the fifth X game because numbering. I've been a fan of the series for ages and dumped a fair bit of time into X3 a fair few years back. It's just an all-round very good space sim in my opinion. The only real issue I've had with the X series is that there is absolutely no sign of multiplayer, which is a pity because for a lot of what it does it very well, but it's also, I understand why, because a lot of what it does you couldn't do in a multiplayer setting. There's just too much stuff going on that is way too easy to screw with multiple people.
Yep.
And I can't imagine how you would have a hosting situation for that, because it's basically constantly simming the entire universe to a fairly significant detail, but it's doing a lot of it as background calcs and just jumping forward and so forth when time skips happen. I can't imagine how that goes down if there's multiple players. It also traditionally has dealt with travel times in actual legitimate real times, and the idea is that you can fast forward the pace of the game. And I don't know how you possibly get that to work with multiple players.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Side note, are you still on your mobile data?
No. Is it cracking up?
Yeah, it's crackling.
Luke, is it coming through crackly for you? Or is that just...
It is, but my TeamSpeak is saying that I have high ping.
Actually, yeah, it's pinging across the board.
Luke's crackling for me too.
Yeah. I wonder if it might be TeamSpeak that's having the hiccup if all of us are getting the same thing.
Yeah, we're all pinging at 800. Anyway. Another one I had been eyeing off was Divinity Original Sin 2. Now, Luke, being a big RPG gamer, have you ever touched that series?
Yes. I don't recall if I've done number 2, but I have definitely played number 1. Or I have it in the wrong order, and I've never played number 1, and I have played number 2. I can't remember. Actually, I kind of wish Nick was here. He normally remembers that better than I do. Let me think. Maybe my library can remind me.
I played the original one. Well, not original Divinity. Oh, actually, I have played the original Divinity, but I played Original Sin number 1 and quite liked it, and that's why number 2's been sitting on the wish list for a while. And again, I've done this as a just dump and burn, well, dump and consider and burn sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found out if it was 1 or 2 that you played?
Looking at it, it must have been number 1.
Did you enjoy the series?
Actually, hold on.
We're holding on, Luke.
No, hold on for dear life.
How long does it take to search your library?
No, it's a matter of me comparing the two of them, and I'm trying to figure out which one is which.
I don't have a lot of grip strength. I'm losing grip.
Okay,
Can't hold on.
It was definitely number 1. No, I had to compare it to them. No, the graphics of the one I played didn't look quite as I wouldn't say pristine, but didn't look quite as good as what number two did. I've looked at number one. It's like, yeah, that looks a lot more like what I was experiencing. But yeah, so I played number one. This one here, it had a local co-op, didn't it? Yes, it did.
Yeah, it did.
So Nick and I have played number one as co-op. I don't know how far we got. It was a fair distance. But yeah, Nick and I have played this one as co-op before.
The second one also went so far as to do it online, I'm pretty sure.
Can the first one not be done online?
I'm actually
Steam
not
has it
sure.
down as online multiplayer.
Maybe it
or
can be.
cross-platform multiplayer.
Oh, there you go. Number 2 is actually 4-player in co-op.
Yes, actually.
Whereas I'm pretty sure the first one was only 2-player.
Actually, it could have been. You can have up to 4 members in your party, so I would have thought you could control all of them independently.
But I thought the way the first one did it was that it was 2 slots per player.
Yeah, you might be on the mark there. It's been a little while since I played that one, but yeah, I think you might be right.
Yeah, the co-op for the first one is only 2-player, and I think it's a case of you can control 2 slots per player. Number 2 must have gone so far as actually be each of the 4 party slots can be an individual.
But no, from what I played the first one, it is a very interesting game. It does require quite a bit of strategy going into a lot of the fights.
Yeah.
Nick and I used to have a lot of fun when we used to split off and do our own thing, and then suddenly I'd be like, Nick, why are you dead? And he'd be like, I got into a fight. He's like, where were you? I said I was off looting a pot. And he'd be like, why were you over there? And I'm like, well, what? And then we'd be in a fight where there's water, and I'll say, Nick, don't cast electricity. And what does he do? He casts electricity.
As a whole, I think the game just took a fair bit of thought in a lot of what you were doing, which...
It was a lot of fun when I played it. And, yeah, honestly, I think it's one of those ones where I'd always be keen to give it, to play 1 or 2, to be honest. They're both very exceptional games.
Or maybe I'm making the sales pitch for playing number 2 co-op.
Well, mate, actually, I wouldn't say no if you wanted to. It was always a fun game, as long as your allies don't get you killed.
Mark, give in. Join us.
I'm sure I could convince Nick if I mind him all the time of all the times he killed me and all the times he laughed.
It's a 4-player game, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. I thought it was on our Origin access thing.
Was it? I thought that was only the original.
I'm pretty sure that was only number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, if number 2 was on there, I probably would have been playing quite a lot of it.
The next one on my list, and this is actually what I'm interested to get your take on, Luke, is Skyrim VR.
Yeah.
I've been sitting on the idea of this game for a while, and just debating on whether or not I actually think it will work in VR, because I'm a fan of Skyrim in general.
So, I must not be remembering very well. I thought I heard you talk not too long ago about Skyrim VR.
About it not being that great.
I haven't played it. I had concerns and go back and forward about it for a while, and I had gotten to the point of thinking, yeah, I might actually give this a shot, but never actually pulled the pin on buying it because it wasn't on sale at the time, and now being half price, it's tempting. There are 2 different versions of Skyrim VR though.
Oh, okay.
There's a VR mod for the original game, which the short version runs like shit. And then there's the actual Bethesda-made VR version, which again is essentially just a modded version of the game, but it's a lot more officially supported. And
Gotcha.
from what I've heard, it runs a lot better. There's still some apprehension there, and as another VR player here, that sort of open world game, do you think it would work well in VR? Do you think that's worth the plunge?
I think it would. But in saying that, that's also coming from someone who I've now played enough VR that I can quite easily handle the very obtruse movements in VR that it doesn't concern me. When Nick was visiting me in Easter, I had him try out my VR, and I think if I were to have put Skyrim in front of him at that time, not that I have it, but if I did, I'm sure he would have immediately taken off the headset and walked out the door. Because he struggles quite a bit with understanding or trying to understand the parallels between playing in VR and having to actually remember what he's doing in the real world as well. But from my perspective, I could see the value in it. Whether or not it could keep me entertained for the same length of time that just playing the game normally on a PC or console would, probably not really there. I don't imagine I'd play it quite as much, but the experience would be nice. Which is sort of what makes me wonder if it might be more worthwhile. I don't know. They don't have any sort of demo for it, something to test the waters.
I wish there was, but apart from a very different and significantly worse VR mod for the base game, I don't believe there is any way to try it out.
Because that's sort of what I would be keen for. If they had some sort of demo for it where I could even just like play the opening part or play a fixed segment where I could experience every aspect of Skyrim just the tiniest bit in the VR world, that would soon enough tell me if I could, one, handle playing the entire game that way, and two, if it could keep me entertained for the entire length of the game. If I could get those two questions answered and they both came back positive, I'd probably be more than happy to jump on the VR wagon for Skyrim.
Yeah.
But I don't know, what are they asking for it in this current sale?
Australian 45.
Okay. Is that what is this? What's his normal going rate? 70? 80?
90 Australian.
Okay, so it's about half.
It is half.
Don't you dare quote me. Yeah, I'd say it's still difficult to justify that amount for myself personally. But in saying that, someone who's dedicated enough, such as I know you love your Skyrim, you would probably be able to look past a lot of the things I've talked about, and probably could still enjoy the game for a similar amount of time that you would of the original.
The thing is, the base. I know the base game and really enjoy the base game, and as much as I also haven't played it, I've heard that Bethesda's Doom VR wasn't too bad either. So
That's true.
And I don't know if you've played In Death, but In Death was actually the game that sort of got me thinking maybe this will work, because there's a decent amount of In Death's combat mechanics that I imagine would be the same way that Skyrim's would work.
I think In Death is actually one of the games I had down on my VR wishlist.
It's solid. It's good.
It's solid?
Yeah. You've got to be prepared. Like you've got to want to play archery, because that's basically what the core of the game is.
I have noticed a lot of VRs have lent on archery as their core.
The reality is that when it comes to VR combat, archery is just so much easier to get right.
Yes.
Because the fundamental of archery is that you're at range from the opponent. And as much as the idea of melee would be fun, and Beat Saber is a great example of that, how do you get the feedback of melee? Because there's no way for them to really do the collision of your blade hitting an opponent. Whereas archery...
Not well, anyway.
Whereas archery, where any sort of situation where you're at range, you just take damage. Like, you don't need your weapon to be really blowing back that hard, especially when it's a bow and arrow. Do you get what I mean?
Like, I think the only game I have that includes sword combat is Blade and Sorcery, which was actually the one that we predominantly played while Nick and Tamara were visiting. It was actually funny. I convinced Tamara to play the game, and Nick's like, oh, she won't like all the slashing, all the physical requirements, and having to run around and all that. I'm like, oh, so I was like, give it a chance, give it a chance, she'll enjoy it. It was like 10 minutes in, she was gutting people, she was running around, slicing people's heads off, having a good fun. I was looking over at Nick, and he was just in horror. He couldn't believe that she was actually enjoying herself. But on the topic of melee combat, that one tries its hardest to make it work, but like what you've said, it does a decent job. It's better than most physical games I've found, but the biggest fallback it has is if you swing at someone and for whatever reason the connection just isn't there, everything just goes weird. Your sword suddenly appears somewhere someone else. Your weapon suddenly flies up out of and you have to try to figure out if you can catch it before you get stabbed. That was a fun experience once. And in the process of measuring exactly, like, if I were to put my sword on someone's held out arm and swing in that exact position, there's no guarantee I'm going to take off his arm. I'm probably going to take off his hand, or I'm going to slice him in the torso. The accuracy just isn't there. And I think that's a lot of where it still needs to improve. The bow and arrow and the magic in the game, though, was pretty solid, and again, that falls under it's at range. You either take damage or you don't. So I do agree with you. That's definitely why they've definitely focused on archery for most of the games in that category of VR. But the ones that do try sword play, they have a pretty fair crack at it.
Yeah. You just need something that actually gives real force feedback in VR for the controllers, and I just don't know how you do it. Like, you can't have the controller generate momentum. Well, at least with anything that we currently have available. And that's probably the biggest thing that it's missing. If you actually had a way for a controller to react to what is being simulated, then maybe. I think there's also been a comment made that maybe the controllers need better like rumble and feedback within them, and I've heard that the next generation of Steam controllers are actually really good for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I don't know if you've heard that, but they're actually compatible with the existing Vive units.
Oh, that'd be pretty good.
So I'm half tempted to just buy the new controllers for it.
Oh, most definitely. If they're gonna do a solid like that, yeah, by all means, that's easy than buying a whole damn new unit and putting the Vive on its side, just like, oh, sorry, I can't use it anymore. This is the latest and greatest. If they just gave us new equipment that lasted with the existing gear, I can certainly keep up my VR experience. The one thing I don't want is for them to suddenly say, oh yeah, everything we've done for that one's now obsolete. Buy this whole new kit. It's like, no. If they started doing that, it becomes a big money dump for VR, and you can't really justify it anymore.
You mean what Oculus has been doing?
Yeah, let's not talk about Oculus.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's one that I've been considering for a while, and we've hit on it, that it all comes down to, I don't know if melee combat in VR is ready yet. Especially in anything that's not like Beat Saber style or Super Hot style, where it's designed as a simulation, and where the idea is that you wouldn't actually have resistance.
Yep. What else did you have in your cart of goodies?
This is one that's completely taken me from left field, but I looked through it a little bit and thought, that doesn't look too bad. Shadows Awakening.
Oh, you've seen that one too?
Yeah, I saw that and was like, that actually looks pretty good.
I thought it looked like a pretty solid game. I actually originally was going to buy it on GOG, but then when the Steam sale came about, it ended up being cheaper on Steam.
Yeah.
So I think I still have it in my cart, but yeah, I think it's a pretty solid single player game for what it's worth.
So it's another RPG.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a Diablo Torchlight sort of RPG, but it's single player.
Which I think was originally one of its was meant to be its selling point, but I think for some people ended up being a drawback. But to be fair, most of us who like our RPGs don't really fret too much if we can't always play it with someone else. Sometimes you like to just progress on your own.
Well, that's the thing, that type of game though has, from past experience, done well solo as well. Like if it's designed for it, it does well solo. Like I would actually make the argument that the Sacred series plays better solo than it does multiplayer.
Yes, actually, from all the experiences Nick and I ever used to have with Sacred, it always used to go better when we didn't try to play it together.
Yeah, so like from that point of view, I'm very interested in giving this a shot. I don't know whether or not I want to jump into the newest game in the series, or because there's an older one, isn't there? Yeah, there is an older one.
I need to re-educate myself. It was like 2 weeks ago I was looking at that one, and I've already forgotten what everything about it.
Actually, just looking at it, the older one.
Vikings, Wolves of the Midgard.
I was actually looking at that. There's Shadow's Heretic Kingdoms.
Oh, yep.
But in saying that, it's the same. It's actually more expensive, so maybe it is better to just jump on the new one. I wasn't going to buy any of the DLC until I've given the base game a crack.
Yep, I'm of the similar mind. And from what I've read from a lot of people, they pretty much said the base game is enough to keep you entertained for quite a few hours anyway. So there's not a huge benefit in getting the DLC straight away.
Yeah.
But saying that, it's also not extremely expensive. So if you did jump on it now, you're probably not really doing yourself any real wrong there. It's just like you spend an extra, what is it, $8 now or $9 now, and you get yourself all the DLC.
Yeah. Speaking of DLC, the other one that I've lined up is all the DLC for Dungeons 3. Because I still haven't actually finished the campaign of it, but from what I have played so far, I've enjoyed it, and the DLC all looked pretty decent. Like, it's actually all campaign DLC with more missions. It's not just, like, here's an extra couple of units.
When are you going to do co-op campaign with me?
We need to do that sometime, Mark. We need to. We
How
need
many people does it?
I think it's
co-op?
just 2.
I think the multiplayer is 4, but the co-op is only 2. In saying that, like,
Okay.
if you like references to a lot of the shit that I know we all play, and like bits of in-jokes and stuff, the humor will carry through a decent amount of it.
Fair enough.
I was also a big fan of Dungeon Keeper as a kid, and it's sort of
Yeah.
a Dungeon Keeper remake with added stuff.
If you want the closest you're going to get to a decent Dungeon Keeper game, it's probably that. So,
Mhm.
I don't know, how much is the base game selling for at the moment on Steam?
I think it's actually one of the top tier picks at the moment for this particular sale. This was Dungeons 3.
Yeah.
$14.
Yep.
I think it's worth it for 14 personally. It depends on how you value your time with it.
Well, I don't know. How does the game play specifically? Like you say, there's a campaign, but I see.
Do you have any experience with Dungeon Keeper?
I don't think I do. That's probably why
I was going
I'm
to say,
on
it's
the
like
fence.
Dungeon Keeper with an overworld.
So, okay, there's an overworld where the base concept is meant to be more RTS-y, but it's Warcraft-style RTS-y, where you've got hero units and so forth.
Mhm.
But the other side of it is that your actual base is a dungeon. You play as the bad guy, basically.
Okay.
Or
Yep.
You play as a fantasy bad guy. And your base is actually a dungeon that you set up, so you've got to like design traps and build traps and stuff to try and defend your base, and so forth. Like
You dig through your underground area, you get like gold and other resources, and you build your houses with camps where people can live and like food and all that, and then you go take your troops to the overworld and sort of conquer the overworld and do the campaign.
Like, the overworldy part plays an awful lot like a more story-driven Warcraft 3 level.
And it's like God mode, so you're just a giant hand controlling everything.
Yeah. You are meant to be the all-knowing, all-powerful, unspeakable evil.
And there's just a lot of comedy in it, like, the main character, she's sort of conflicted, where she's good, but she's, like, got an evil side.
She turns evil so fast, though.
Yeah.
It's like, that's barely holding on. You wanted to do this. But, yeah, like... Did you ever play Magicka?
Yes.
If you liked Magicka's just super referential style of humor, you'll get a bit of a giggle out of that in this as well, because the number of Blizzard references in the first 4 levels, like the entire first 4 levels, is basically Blizzard references.
Fair.
I'm just saying, worth consideration.
I'll place in my card and I'll see what I think about.
You're gonna do a me, just line everything up and be like, do I?
I'm actually a bit concerned about myself. It's been like a week this sale's been on, and I'm only just now adding things into my card. I'm thinking to myself, how dedicated was I honestly to this cause?
I am honestly not going to buy anything this sale.
No, nothing at all takes your interest.
I mean, I've got a bunch of stuff on my wish list, and like if you go through my wish list, you could tell what sort of games I play. Like, my top list is RimWorld, Factorio, Stardew Valley, Oxygen not included, Wild 8, My Time at Portia, and Terraria. They're all like sim games, but I've got so much stuff on the back catalogue, I don't really need anything, and they're only like 25% off. Like, they're still the cheapest they've ever been, but it's still not picking my fancy.
I can understand that. Most of the ones I have on my list are like, what was it, 40% above off? So for a lot of them, I'm really on the fence because it's like, it's probably not going to be that cheap again in a long time. Maybe I should be buying it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they've done me a discourtesy this sale. They've given me too many options.
I've actually just seen another one that you apparently own, Luke, and I've been umming and ahhing about, is Everspace.
Yeah. Is it bad that I tell you I've only loaded that one up for like 10 minutes? I did have high hopes for it when I first bought it, but I haven't actually sat down long enough to give it the chance. I mean, from what I've read about it, it's a really good game, and if you play it long enough, you'll probably be hooked. In my case, it's just one of those things where I've had it for a long time, and every time I think to myself, I might play that, it's like, but then I have to start fresh. I have to learn something. Do I want to? And then for some reason, Rocket League loads up.
And suddenly Rocket League appears.
And I'm just like, take me away, remove my indecision.
Solve my problems.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just remembered. I saw a thing. Have you heard of the game Black Desert Online?
Yes.
Yes.
So I saw a thing recently where there's a 14-day trial. So if you sign up for the 14-day trial and level up to level 50, I think it is, within the trial, they give you the free standard pack. They give you the standard pack for free.
Oh.
And that's only happening within the next week or so. If you don't do it within a week or so, that's gone.
Is the community base dying?
I don't know.
From what I've
Sounds like
heard, that game has basically no end game, and which is sort of death for an MMO.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I was tempted when I first saw it being advertised. Then I watched it for a little bit, and it's just like, yeah, there's nothing that's really pulls me into the end game here. I'm not going to try it.
I know it's actually super early days, but Luke, as a return to another MMO, a certain World of Warcraft,
Oh, I thought you were going to say Destiny 2.
how have you enjoyed the patch so far?
Um, only thing I was concerned about when I first started back up was I thought to myself, how far behind am I in my levels? I logged onto my account, looked at my character, and thought, oh, my character is 395. I thought, okay, and I'm thinking myself at the time, where did Cameron say he was up to? And they're like, okay, he said he was somewhere around the 410 mark. I'm like, okay, wonder what I need to do and around these parts to get up to that point. When it did some quests, ran a few dungeons, and it's like, I've spent 4 hours and my eye level hasn't changed. I thought to myself, am I? And then I realized, oh, I need to be raiding. And I thought, oh, what am I gonna do with my spare time until the raid comes around?
Or you need to be doing higher level mythics. Enough.
Well, the only benefit I've found to that one so far is that since we've run a 10, I am guaranteed a 410 piece or better in my chest, which is
Yes.
nice. But then I looked at my gear and thought, all of my gear is very close to or is 400. So it's like, unless I get some really good Titan forges off of some of these dungeons I'm doing, it's like I'm gonna have to pretty much hope to God that my raiding goes really well, or I'm gonna be relying heavily on those weekly chests.
In
Which means
saying,
I'm becoming crying to you every single week for 10.
you say that, but like Season 3 starts tomorrow plus 3 hours.
Yes.
So-
which I'm hoping will change my stance on this very quickly.
So all of a sudden, everything from a 6 and above will be upgrades for me. And
Oh well, in that case, then yeah, maybe it won't be so bad. Maybe my problem when I joined back up was I should have waited a few extra days until the new season.
no, I would argue it's probably better to get the ball rolling before the season begins.
Well, yeah. I mean, considering how abysmal I was in the first 2 dungeons I ran, I think I benefited from the warm up.
Yeah. At least this way we're also both going to get at least a 6 or above key out of the chest for it, but
Sure.
don't know how heavily Blizzard's going to nerf the key that you get out of this week's chest with the new season starting.
Hmm.
The way that the rebalance is going, it's non-linear, it's an exponential rebalance, so what was a 7 will now be a 6, except for the affix that's disappeared, and what was a 12 will now be a 10. And then I think it's what was a 17 is now a 14,
Okay.
and it just keeps climbing like that.
That's okay. Once you got above 12, it sort of was away from the realm of possibility for me.
We'll
At least
fix
early
that.
days.
We gotta get up some rankings.
That's true. I do actually need to make myself look decent.
I
I'm in a new guild now. I have to make myself look good.
want
Otherwise they drop me.
I want to get back into those single-digit tanks numbers for our server.
That's true. I've noticed though that my days of running disc and dungeons seems to be dead
For now.
for now, unless something magical happens. But I mean, I'm not disappointed on running holy. I do enjoy raw healing. It's actually quite nice. But it's not bad. I mean, I like how that I've got back into it again, and I've already had several experiences of having to run each and every one of my spec types So it's like, at least I'm not stuck focusing on a single one or being told not to even bother switching into it. So that's always nice. The fact that I get to utilize my class to its fullest.
Yeah. And well, I can't claim to that because I haven't healed in God knows how long.
Please, healing is like cancer for you, I believe. Out of the few times I've seen you heal, I'm happy for you to think it's cancerous because I don't think we need you there. I'm just being honest.
It's better if you don't. Is basically the vibe I'm getting.
That's what Cameron here goes, why is everyone dead? Cameron!
Cameron as heals is actually doing a Dungeon 3 man because Cameron's taking an entire extra person away.
We need to dedicate one shield to... Saying that though, it is a shame that you don't heal because it looks like holy... Cameron contemplates, do I ever try it? Meaning, hell no.
Oh. We'll one day give it a shot.
That's right. It'll be a similar day when when I used to try to convince Mark to go into his heal spec as monk.
I believe I healed probably about 4 times as a monk.
And how were your experiences from what you can recall?
There was a lot of me going to the actual action bar and looking at what the ability was before I clicked it.
I see.
Like reading the tooltips.
I can imagine how well those dungeons went. Hang on, guys, I'll hear you in a second. I think this is a heal.
I think this
This
button
ability
helps.
looks like a heal. The icon looks healy.
What's this do? Uses mana, that's a good sign.
Wait, I just suicided?
Jump off cliff. Oh. Maybe you shouldn't have used that.
That uses mana, but it uses up all your mana.
My experiences with healing have mainly just been grinding levels as the healer in dungeons. I've done like monk, druid, and shaman, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's a shame sometimes that Nick didn't try to learn his druid a bit more. He could have been quite skilled as a healing druid.
Yeah.
It would have been nice if he would have mastered it for our PvP. He was the ideal choice, but he never played long enough to actually learn the tricks of the trade so that he can master keeping us alive as well as annoying the enemy of Cyclone.
I think everyone just sort of falls into their patterns of like what sort of classes they like. Like I usually just focus on like tanky melee abilities, like no matter what game I play.
Amen to that.
Oh dear. I mean,
I
I
remember
could
the
say
days when
a similar thing, but when I compare my WoW experience to my Overwatch experience, I don't know why, but I just mess up healing all the time in Overwatch. But in WoW, I love it.
Yeah.
I remember the time when Luke said there's no way we'll ever get him to heal.
I mean, you say that about Overwatch, and like I mainly avoid heals. Like I like being the tank, or like even Brigitte, like a melee healer.
I can see that what is it? That orc in you, Mark. I can see that orc in you, always brandishing an axe.
Yeah.
Mark is the inner barbarian amongst all of us.
Yes.
All
Well-
things are strength checks for Mark.
Anything else happening in the world?
In the world as a whole,
I see America took over China in the global gaming revenue. So, like, basically everyone sort of assumes mobile China games taken over the most of gaming, but consoles apparently overtook mobile sales, which makes sense. Like, consoles are your closest to like DRM free sort of games you can get lately,
Yeah, it's true.
plus the game sharing when you buy digital.
Yeah, I struggle these days to keep up with anything that's a mobile game. I can play it for like a good couple of weeks, but honestly,
You just get bored.
it bores me very quickly. And the way a lot of those ones are, where it's always trying to encourage you to come back and play every day, it's like, I'd probably come back and play if you didn't pester me.
Yeah.
But always thinking that there's always someone there bugging you. It's just you're sitting there doing your work and you get a notification. You think, oh, cool, is someone talking to me? No, it's a freaking game trying to ask me to come back and play while I'm working. How about you piss off?
Or it's so much focused on you watching an ad, like
Oh
the
yes.
base game is revolved around you have to watch this ad to continue, or else it's just like a really boring game.
Yeah, which is a shame because back when they first started releasing the Fire Emblem games on mobile, I actually had really high hopes because I always loved the way the Fire Emblem series created their games, the grid-like combat. Sort of reason why I'm also keen for when the new Fire Emblem Three Houses comes out at the end of this month. But I mean, that's probably the longest mobile game I ever played, which I think I played it for a good 2 or 3 months. But even that eventually just died out.
Yeah.
I just can't keep up with it. In saying that, though, I thought the same when I bought my Switch. That I thought I'd made a huge mistake, that I'd never play a game while I'm on the go. But I've convinced myself otherwise. I still get a lot more playtime out of my Switch than I do my old 3DS or my mobile phone. So maybe it's just the bigger screen, and that may be all it comes down to. Maybe I just hate focusing my hours on a tiny screen for hours on end.
Get an iPad.
I mean, I could, but every iPad I've ever had, I always forget to put it on charge, and when I go to use it, it's dead. So I lose my enthusiasm and then don't look at it for a month, and forget to then also still put it on charge. So
Yeah.
it's a repetitive process, and I'm not doing myself any favors.
Um. Well, did anybody have any other news for this one? The only
Oh wow, what's I don't know what this is, but I just saw a thing of Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo join forces to oppose increasing tariffs in US.
I had heard something about that, but I didn't read too much into it.
Apparently. Oh, okay. No, that's that increase on imports from China, and video game consoles are made in China. Okay.
that would make an awful lot of sense.
That explains the interest.
Yep. So it's not so much gaming as the whole fact that taxes increasing from China to US. Carry on.
Did you have something there to say, Cameron?
Um, not really. The only thing that I noticed was, and I only bring it up because we had talked about the game before. The next Digimon game has been delayed till 2020.
Oh, I did see that. That was very depressing. I was really
Yes.
looking forward to hopefully having that one this year.
I think that was one of the few things that was in the back half of this year that was on my to hit list.
Yeah, I probably would have bought that one on the first day too. It has all the right elements for me that I think I'd enjoy it quite thoroughly. Well, I'll just push it to 2020, like hoping for this year, and we'll get pushed back. Maybe this is the year that I could just have nothing but complete disappointment. Now, there's still a few decent games that are coming out this year that'll keep me entertained. The ones I really want to play are all next year at this rate. Maybe we should just skip the last half of this year and just start 2020 now. All in favor, say aye. Aye!
What's involved in skipping though? Like,
I don't know.
does the year happen and we just don't have to live
I
it?
don't know. I'm still trying to contemplate if we should let the year play out or if we should just suddenly skip forward 6 months.
Because game development doesn't happen if the year just suddenly skips forward.
Yes, you're right. Maybe we have to let it play out. Maybe we freeze ourselves for 6 months.
And then we send game developers back into the past so they can make the games, and then they'll be ready
If
now.
we send you back 6 months, can you have it ready in 6 months? I mean, it's a roundabout way, but maybe logic will prevail? What if they ask for back pay? Oh, I'm not the one paying.
Yeah, this is a gaming industry. Don't they just work overtime with no pay?
Yeah, just like the anime industry. Those are some hard points that we shouldn't touch on.
Why is it so many of our favorite industries are assholes?
Well, at least we try to do our part. Except for Mark. He's not buying anything from Steam this time.
Yep.
Mark is scum.
Yeah, I might just buy from the third party.
PCUA.
Yeah. Buy it all from Humble. Makes me feel like I'm contributing to charity. That like
Nice.
2 cents of the $50 I spent goes to a charity.
You're a god among men, Mark.
Okay, so I'm just going through random news at the moment, and I just found something really interesting and actually relates to me.
Oh, really?
So, Ubisoft has been doing research on subtitles in modern games. So they've been looking at all their player data, and they saw that Assassin's Creed Origins, 60% of the people turned subtitles on during their game. So the Far Cry New Dawn default had subtitles on, and around 97% of people didn't turn it off. Assassin's Creed Odyssey had default subtitles on, 95% people didn't turn it off. And The Division 2 had subtitles turned on, and 75% of players turned them on. What? Oh no, yeah, Division 2 didn't have subtitles. 75% players turned it on.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Pretty much most of those games that I have played, I turned subtitles on.
Yeah.
Is that
Mostly because
you just
there's
really
so much
need it or
going
you
on
can't
in a
hear
lot of those
anything?
games. You sort of have to turn them on if you want everyone to understand some of the back talking that's going on.
You do like miss a lot when you don't have subtitles, like people just whispering in the background and
Oh, that's the worst part.
explosions.
And in a game even like in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, if you're a little bit too far away from someone, you don't just suddenly get a little speaker like in Division 2 where someone just talks over a radio. You literally just hear a distant cry of them back there, and if you can't understand the echo, then you've already lost that dialogue.
Yeah.
But if you have your subtitles on, it doesn't matter how far ahead of them you get, you'll always understand what they're saying, you just won't hear it in their voice.
So it might be interesting to see what happens in the future with subtitles in gaming. Whether default will be subtitles always be on.
I mean, I don't really have any concerns. I mean, it's like most settings, it's easy enough just to toggle it on if you want it and toggle it off when you don't.
Yeah.
All they have to do is be conscious of that. If you're going to put subtitles on there, it has to be plain in plain text, and it shouldn't have any sort of, and there shouldn't be a situation where it can overlap and get in the way of the player's UI. As long as you manage those couple of steps, it'll always do its job, and people will always be happy to have it. Only when it starts getting laid upon, or they don't present it in a clear enough font, or the size is too small, that people tend to just be like, oh well, if I can't read it, what's even the point of having it on?
True.
So just to back up a little bit, I found the prices on the Valve's new VR headset.
Oh yeah, what are they going for? Or what are they asking?
So the full kit is $1,400. This is Australian prices.
Mm-hmm.
If you want just the headset, as in you already have a HTC, as in a Vive, it's a $700 upgrade. If you want just the controllers, it is $400 for the pair of controllers, which are compatible with the Vive headsets. And if you want the new base stations, it's it's $200 per base station. Which again are backwards compatible with the older headsets. I don't know what circumstance you need the new base stations but none of the other hardware. But maybe there is.
Well, I think their best bet would be to release some sort of a list or some sort of compatibility list that they can indicate to, depending on each person's situation, what they'd need to get in order to basically make this the end scenario, the end product thereafter a reality, so that they can know exactly if you buy these components, this is what you can expect, and you could avoid these components because they won't change what you're going to get if you just buy these. That would be useful. Otherwise, just a clear explanation of what each one of them is, so that people can make that comparison themselves, would also be the second backup.
So the further description is that the new base stations do not benefit you if you have a standard Vive, only if you have a Vive Pro.
Yeah, details like that.
Or the new headset. The new headset is compatible with all of the old equipment, but will be better will experience better with the new equipment. The controllers are compatible with all the old equipment, but again, it states will be better with the newer stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. But at least with that there is enough to tell you that if you just went for the bare minimum to do like the bare essentials upgrade, you wouldn't really be missing out on a huge amount. I mean, until they release proper performance data to show you what the difference is between using new hardware versus using it with the old, most people probably would be more than happy just to go with bare minimum upgrades.
Yeah, don't know what the difference is going to be. What the difference is on the base stations. The headset itself, it's like that's reasonably easy to compare data because we've got screen resolutions and so forth.
Yep.
To get a general feel for that. Apparently the big selling point for the new controllers is that they actually are much more detailed tracking and actually have some level of monitoring where your individual fingers are.
Okay.
The demo apparently has it that you can give like a thumbs up and it will actually recognize a thumbs up, or you can stick your middle finger up and again it will recognize that you're performing that gesture.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Again, Valve's got a demo that actually recognizes those gestures and responds accordingly. Beyond that, God knows what anybody's going to implement with them.
So I gotta say, so is that the hardware itself that can or sorry, I forget. Is this an upgrade to the Vive or is this a third party thing?
So this is sort of the upgrade for the Vive. This is a case of Valve is doing this is where HTC and Valve are diverging. So the Vive itself was a combined project between Valve and HTC. So the new unit is pretty much Valve with building on what the Vive was. HTC is going their own way with an alternative that is not yet available.
Gotcha. Okay.
From what little has been said so far, it may very well get to a situation where the better headset tracking comes from the new HTC unit, and the better controllers come from Valve's unit. But without full details on the HTC one, because we've now got reasonably complete details on Valve's new, what are we going to call this, Gen 3?
Yep.
yeah, we've got basically full details on what Valve's Gen 3 unit is. We don't for HTC's yet. Yeah, it will be interesting to see where it goes. In saying that, you've got to have an insane amount of money if you're going to actually go down. If you're going to mix and match, let alone if you're going to upgrade already after having already purchased a set. Like
yeah, I was going to say.
a setup.
Very interesting times ahead.
If the controllers are as good as the demo so far has made out, I would be if there's decent development around them, I'd be very tempted to just buy a set of the controllers for my unit and then worry about the rest of it later. Or maybe skip Gen 3 for the rest of it and then buy the new actual headset in Gen 4 whenever that comes around. It's difficult to know at this point. But yeah, so that's the price point we're looking at. Still more than what you could actually build a new computer for, but hey.
Well, new technology is always going to cost more. Just look at our mobile phones; they go up in price every single time they release something new. At least we're getting a bit more out of our VR technology upgrades at the moment than we are for our mobile phones.
Yeah, well.
For as long as that's going to last. until they start doing quick upgrades with small changes and calling it a new product. But hopefully they never go down that route. Hopefully they'll be better.
The only other one is, I don't know if you've seen this come up, Luke, but they're now doing a subscription service for VR games.
Yes, I have seen that, and I've been eyeing it off. I look at it every now and again just to see what if there's, try to convince myself if there's a value there for my to grab it. Still on the fence.
If it was a more complete catalogue, I would probably jump at it, but the reality is there's enough stuff in it that I can actually go, but it doesn't have this game. Which, to me, is a bit of a down point.
It's difficult to justify it when we look at it from that perspective, and fundamentally that's what you want out of those subscriptions. It's kind of like when we got this Origin Pass where everything new that came out was at our fingertips.
Well,
It's sort of become what you expect to be the norm with a lot of those systems, a lot of services.
You just knew what you were getting there. You knew you were just going to get all of EA's games.
Exactly.
Like, there's no debate. That's what you're getting.
Yep, and sooner before, a little bit sooner before other people as well. So there was always some nice perks to it. But it's hard to justify it for services like that VR subscription, where you're not guaranteed the latest and greatest, and there's also no guarantee that during the time of your subscription and when that that new game is released, that you're going to get it within a reasonable time frame, ahead of someone who just outright buys it.
And to an extent, this is why I'm actually interested in the Ubisoft version of Origin Premiere. Because, again, it's, you know what you're getting. You're just getting all of Ubisoft. And
I'd be of the same opinion for Ubisoft, if not for the fact that I think I own almost all their major games, and I probably wouldn't get any value out of subscription with them. But if they had got me like 3 or 4, maybe even 5 or 6 years ago, when I probably had very little of all their stuff, that would have been a godsend. Now, though, it's probably like too little, too late.
now we just got to wait for Activision to do the same thing.
Oh, they'll all follow suit eventually. It's becoming a trend.
I think Activision's got a... Activision considers themselves worth more than that still, I believe.
Yeah, let's see how long they sit on that pedestal. They got to come down eventually.
An Activision Blizzard subscription where you get everything with a monthly subscription.
Well, could you imagine the uproar you get from that?
Yeah, could you imagine how much they would actually charge for that if it was all of Activision Blizzard?
$100 a month?
Probably not far off the mark.
Like, let's be real. Blizzard would would do the best to justify charging you $20 to $25 a month.
Hmm.
And I would be certain Activision would want an extra 200 out of you a year. So,
In the case of Blizzard, it wouldn't be bad if they gave you a subscription like that and it gave you everything as well as for your subscription services. It probably would be of value.
let me
Or if
tell
they
you a
had
story.
an older game that doesn't have a community for it anymore, whether they could like chuck it in with their WoW subscription.
So, Blizzard did actually trial that at one point. It was 2010? I might be wrong there.
Before my time.
Maybe. Correct me in the comments.
You assume we have comments.
They actually did a thing that if you maintained a WoW sub for 12 months, you got Diablo 3, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you had to have... It's much like how they're doing mounts now, of like, subscribe for 6 months. They had a thing where subscribe for 12 months and we'll throw in a Diablo 3 pre-order. And the concept behind it was that they would repeat the same thing each year for each thing. They just didn't have a constant flow of stuff, and I don't think it was that popular. I'm not sure.
I guess I can understand that.
Oh, I didn't even realize, because I haven't opened the Blizzard app in ages, that the new Call of Duty is on it.
You are behind
How long's
the
that been
times.
there for?
Hello, Mark from the future.
So 2 interesting points here. Number 1, apparently there's meant to be a big reveal for the new Call of Duty in about 2 weeks' time, which I actually think might be worth paying a little bit of attention to. I don't know. At the moment, the Call of Duty feels like this year's big shooter. The other thing is just looking at this Battle.net page, one of the developers credited here is also the same developer that just did the Crash Team Racing remaster. Clearly, developing a Fuzzy Bandicoot racing game is related to a military shooter.
Mm.
I understand that it's definitely 2 different teams, but...
That reminds me of something else. Control, the new game that's coming out. Like, they also worked on, like, Crossfire, that Chinese first-person shooter game.
There's times where just the same developer makes so many drastically different things.
Mm.
Like
Oh, that's just like Zen Studios for that Operienza game I was playing, like the RPG turn-based game. Like, their latest game before that was a pinball machine.
Oh, did they do Zen Pinball?
Don't know what it was called, but yeah, Zen Studios is the developer name. The Zen Pinball makes sense.
I'm curious now.
Yep, Zen Pinball made by Zen Studios.
There you go. Alright. Well, we've well and truly cleared... Well, not well and truly, but we've cleared the normal hour mark we call for these. Did anybody have anything else to jump in on this one, or...?
I think that's about as much as I've probably done and learnt this week, month, week, 2 weeks,
Fortnight.
2 weeks. I got there eventually, guys.
Words, stuff, time frames.
Beliefs?
Yes, something like that.
I mean, if Raymond was here, he'd say stuff like CD Projekt is working on 2 more IPs for Cyberpunk.
What?
I don't know.
Are you messaging him at the moment, or do you know that for a fact?
It's just a news article.
Oh, fair enough.
I'm assuming it's probably just like DLC or something.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be like Gwent for bloody Witcher 3. A spin-off from a minigame.
No, it's related to Cyberpunk.
Yeah, but Gwent is technically related to Witcher.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Gwent for Cyberpunk, you reckon?
Yeah.
Another card game.
I mean,
Because we don't have enough card games as it is.
based on the way a lot of those card games are thought up, one would hesitate that we don't have enough. How quickly they spit those things out.
But they all just cost way too much to maintain.
Oh,
Card games are like mobile games.
Yeah, no, keep me entertained for just as long. I think the most enjoyment I've had from the last card game I played was opening the first free pack I got, saying "woo" and then shutting it down, and being like, "That was a lot of fun." Back to reality.
I actually miss the days when Hearthstone was actually manageable and didn't have, like, so many cards.
I do regret not getting on the Hearthstone train when it first came out, because yeah, it's impossible to do it these days. But I reckon it would have been fun.
I would have argued that the, like, first 4 expansions for Hearthstone were manageable, but then when they got to the stage that they were doing one every 4 months, it's like, no, no, no,
Leave it alone. Go back.
I'm not doing this. Like, yeah. When they were 8 months apart, I could deal with it. But yes.
That was not meant to be.
No, it was not.
Nor was your money to stay in your wallet. It was not meant to be.
Something like that. We'll go with that.
Yeah, why not?
Alrighty. Well, we will call it there. Thanks for coming, guys, and
Oh, thank you. You're
we'll
welcome.
meet again in a fortnight.
See you all in 2 weeks.
Never talking to you guys again until then.
Yes, piss off. Leave me to my Rocket League.
Watch the new review on Crash Team Racing.
Has it just magically opened on your computer, Luke?
Would you believe I never shut it down?
Actually, I would believe that. Anyway. Bye.
Goodbye.